Welcome to the Lair of Secrets podcast. Today we're talking about the Electric State art book and role-playing game. I'm Ken Newquist, and I finally beat Hades, in so much as anyone can beat Hades.
Yeah, it can go on for a while. I'm David Moore, and I have been blasting apart mechs in Mechwarrior 5, another game where it doesn't seem to have an ending. And I've been finishing up my other unfinished project, which is finishing up on my gaming coffee table. We are at the finishing stage now. So, like, actual finish, like, not stopping, but coatings.
So that's awesome, because that means that you'll have time to play Starforged.
I might have time to write some Starforged stuff. I probably should also write my book. But speaking of books, speaking of books, we've got the Electric State role-playing game, and Ken, you have the art book.
I do have the art book, which, I mean, I don't quite know how to describe it, because it's not really an art book. It's an art plus fiction book, similar to the similar books that he's put out. But so we're going to talk about both the art book / graphic novel, is the other way people have referred to it, or at least the internet. So it started off as this book by Simon Stålenhag. We apologize in advance if we are pronouncing it wrong. We tried to check the internet. The internet gave us 3 different pronunciations. We're just going with it. Yeah. Despite the fact that my family is Swedish, they did not actually teach me how to pronounce Swedish things, although I am very jealous that his last name has a special character in it and mine does not. In any case, this book is about, I don't know, I would say a slow motion apocalypse, but it's just kind of like a worn down, run down world that is petering out. So it's set in an alternative 1997, and this book features a young woman and her robot traveling across the United States. And so for me, having been out to Philmont and seeing, New Mexico, and having been out to like Yellowstone and stuff, there's a lot that strikes home. Like he really creates the feeling of the West and the vastness of the West and the openness. But there's also just this terrible apocalypse that's basically happening, where I think is apocalypse too strong of a word? The world is running down because people got addicted to virtual reality and basically died where they were.
Well, it's neuronics. It's better than virtual reality.
Better than that's what must be why people forgot to eat. Like, people are hooked up to IVs and they just fade away in their seats.
And I would say that your slow motion apocalypse is correct, because in the Electric State role playing game, they say, there's a snippet of it. For now, just imagine a 90s America in slow motion free fall, and most citizens are a deer in the headlights of Armageddon. So, like, people are trying to live their normal everyday lives, sort of, and not able to stop anything. The vibe I'm getting is they're kind of ignoring it and hoping it will go away.
And there's been, as you go through the book, and I don't have a camera set up to show everybody, but there's scenes there's clearly some sort of war that's unfolding, or the remnants of a war that's unfolding. There's badlands, there's places where there's bandits. They talk about not wanting to go north through the Rockies because there's bandits up there, and having to deal with those kinds of things. So there's still pockets of civilization, but everything is just really just run down, and it is a beautiful book. It's one of the reasons why I got it, but you have to be in a decent headspace before you read it, because it's depressing.
In my head, I kind of likened it to Call of Cthulhu, but if Cthulhu was more relatable, because right now, there have been a lot of dystopian things that have been happening. You and I and Chris Miller and others have joked that we are living in a cyberpunk dystopia right now, and it's not as cool as the one in Neuromancer. So, there is that sort of feel, and maybe the beginning of this, I've really barely cracked it open. I backed the Kickstarter. It arrived a little while ago, a few days ago. As we're recording this, either yesterday or today is when Free League has officially released the role-playing game for non-Kickstarter backers. And it talks about how the main company, the scientist named Valeria Lopez, found a way to copy the networks of the human brain back in the 1960s. And then as things go along, she forms a company. Other people are researching it as well, but her company, which I am struggling to find the name of right now, but partners with the Department of Defense, and they end up using the neuronics technology to, back in the late 60s, early 70s, to build what they call drones, but basically giant drone ships, giant drone whatever, and then they're remotely piloted mentally from home, but then, around the world, etc. That technology leaks. Soviet Union and others end up getting a hold of it. Things like the Vietnam War still occur. We still lost it, and it was pretty bad. And when Ford pardons Nixon, the breaking point there is, there's a huge up in arms and a splitting of the American populace of one side or the other. And because of neuronics and because of all this remote control war, a civil war happens. California breaks away from the US, Texas follows 2 days later, and then a bunch of other states fracture apart. And now you have like militias, you have, bandits, you have doomsday priests out in the countryside. The current president of Pacifica, which is what California is now named, is focusing her rebuilding efforts onto the cities, with the idea that it will eventually spread into the more rural areas. But that's kind of also created a divide and left the rural areas a lot more lawless than they probably should be. By the way, this is like the first 15 pages of the book, and mixed in with how to play the game. So like, it is a fairly rich book, rich setting to play in if you want to kind of have that, I don't know, I think you said it earlier, the slow moving apocalypse, and you just trying to survive your travels to get to whatever destination your traveler has. And the whole game is about the journey to get there.
And speaking of, as I was reading it again, so I got this book a number of years ago, read it, hadn't picked it up again until you got your copy of the game today. And so reading through it again, it reminds me somewhat of The Last of Us, which is not a game that I played, but did watch the series. And so there's still some of that, like, that's much further along, obviously, and there's a particular zombie-like threat, but it's got that same sort of feel to it, right? And there's these hidden bits of wonder. And so even like looking at this, I'm holding the screen, like, you still have this, like, Simon's kind of signature art where there's some stuff that's like, wow, that's just like how he does it and how he illustrates it. It's beautiful. It's these like ad covered arcologies, I think. And he's got so much of that you're like, wow, this just looks, it evokes a place that you might want to visit. Like, there's, just like in Tales from the Loop, he's got like these giant power towers or whatever hidden in the mist. And it's like, oh man, this is beautiful. But unlike Tales from the Loop, which I think earlier before the show you described as E.T. fed through the Twilight Zone, I think that's accurate. There's these, like, I'm holding up the cover of Tales from the Loop, the art book. I do have the RPG, but this has, like, this little kid controlling this robot, right? And it's like, oh man, I wanted to be that little kid, right? And it's a pastoral setting. It's Sweden in the 80s. Although it has its own sort of heaviness to it, no doubt, it also has these moments of, I don't know if whimsy is quite the right word, but like nostalgia, where you're like, the Electric State is not that.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I think it feels a little bit like Tales from the Loop is, the feeling, the vibe it evokes is like reading Neuromancer as like a teenager or early 20s, like shortly after it comes out, and going, oh man, it'd be awesome to hook my computer right into my brain. All this stuff is awesome. And then you read it 20 years later and go, oh my God, that would be horrible. Like my company would be in my head all the time. What happens if they, do a firmware update and brick the port / my brain, like all sorts of dystopian things. And we seem to be heading toward that in a lot of ways. and I think that's like the Electric State, the way that I'm reading it, like immediately dispels that for me. This is not a place you'd want to live. Like, no, the cover of this book makes it look really cool. Like, hey, there's like this giant, like Five Nights at Freddy's-esque animatronic drone thing, but it's draped over a highway and just kind of fall in there. You know, it's like there could be some weird and goofiness in here, but from what I'm getting of the vibe, it is not weird and goofy. That is a very surreal thing that's happening, and I think the surrealism will be definitely played up the deeper I get into this book, but it is not a happy surrealistic.
So talking about the role-playing game, so it's published by Free League, as we mentioned. It's based on their Year Zero engine, which powers Alien, Tales from the Loop, Blade Runner, Mutant Year Zero. I've read about this engine because I have the Alien games. I just never actually played them.
Yeah, same with Mutant Year Zero for me. I've actually played the video game for Mutant Year Zero, and I have the game of Mutant Zero and Ad Astra, I think it is. Which is a later on module for Mutant Year Zero. And it seems like a cool system, but I have yet to actually play it.
Well, we did play it in Tales from the Loop.
Well, we did play it in Tales from the Loop.
But it's been a while. I think we played that during the pandemic. It's been like 3 years or something. So I remember enjoying the system, but I think like Tales from the Loop, this is going to end up being the sort of thing like you're going to have to be in the right headspace, and your friends are going to need to be in the right headspace to play this game. It was funded on a Kickstarter, as you mentioned, which raised $413,000, if I've translated my currency correctly from the Swedish.
Because it's kroner.
Krona, yeah.
Yeah.
And they had 5,715 backers. So, you know, there was a lot of support around this particular game. And so I asked you this question before, and now you can answer it for realsies. Like, I bought the art book. I didn't get the RPG. Maybe because I bought the art book. Why did you buy the RPG?
Like, I did not get the art book, not knowing that it had fiction in it. I might have done that instead. But you know, I really love his art, and I did for Tales from the Loop as well. And, you know, I kind of want to give this setting a try. You know, I hadn't read too deeply into it, so maybe there was a little bit of FOMO in there for the Kickstarter. But I really like. I mean, the art is really what drew me in. I haven't heard anything really bad about the Year Zero engine. You know, and my experience with it hasn't been bad, so I don't think it's a bad system. So that would probably be fine. That's why I bought it. You know, I tend to buy more game books than art books, so that is probably the other part as well that
Gotcha. And I'm remembering, I'm just looking it up right now because I also have Twilight 2000, which is another sort of gaming in a world that never was, but I don't remember which rule system it is because it came during the pandemic, so I never actually got to play it. But that's another free. Well,
the original Twilight 2000 was like its own system, and I don't remember if it's the same one now. But yeah, that's like Twilight 2000. You know, if you take away the weird neuronics and drones, like it. That's kind of Twilight 2000-esque. You know, there was a quote unquote World War III, but it wasn't huge. There may have been there was some minor nuclear exchanges, but not a big one. And society is kind of collapsing, and you're, you know, trapped in that collapsing war zone area, as far as I remember the game. And yeah, so it's kind of the same. So society is collapsing or has collapsed, and you're trying to survive, and you're traveling to do whatever your character is wanting to do.
So the rules for that game are, it builds on the Year Zero engine, so same rules, but heavily adapted to fit Twilight 2000. It's focused on gear and gritty realism. So another book sitting on the shelf, box set sitting on the shelf. It was also, I gotta say, reality got a little too close to Twilight 2000 when the whole Ukrainian-Russian war broke out. So I wasn't super eager to jump into it, but I do have a lot of nostalgia for playing Twilight 2000 from back in the day. And Sweden is a setting in the book, if I remember correctly. It's Poland and Sweden.
Twilight 2000 was a much more crunchy system in the original set, if I recall, with like different weapons having different ballistic penetrations and different armors and rolling on tables and tables, if I recall. I never actually played it. I had friends who did, but I never got into that game, so I can't say.
It was a cool game. We played it at lunch and after school in middle school. So I mean, it was it was the same time Red Dawn came out, right? So it was perfect for us to play.
Gotcha.
So you're going to hear more about the Electric State in 2025, because in March 2025 there is a movie coming out on Netflix, which is being directed by the Russo brothers, them of the Winter Soldier, Infinity War, Endgame, other movies that aren't Marvel, starring Millie Bobby Brown and Chris Pratt. And this is the part I really don't get. According to Wikipedia and other sources, it's a comedy. Now, to your point, we don't know what the original source was because we don't have it like quoted. The Russo brothers say it's a hilarious comedy, so it could just be some guy in Arkansas like said it's a comedy, and like the internet picked it up. But
well, I have to say,
I don't know how you get here.
I have to make a minor correction here. It's a science fiction adventure comedy.
Science fiction adventure comedy
doesn't make any sense either. I don't think it's going to be anything comedic when it finally comes out. You know, you sent me some page with some clips and stuff, and yes, there is some comedic looking set design, like the robot that Millie Bobby Brown probably befriends has a very bulbous head and very strange sort of LED lit looking face, which could be comedic. But I think that might be where it stops.
Yeah, they talk about it's set in alternative 90s where robots have rebelled against humanity and there's a war against AI, which doesn't quite track with what I remember reading. But you know what? I guess we'll see how it goes. Amazon attempted to adapt Tales from the Loop, and they went the other way. They went so subdued as a series that it barely retained the Twilight Zone-ish aspects. Like, it had a little bit of it, but it just wasn't as impactful as the graphic novel. I feel like maybe they're trying to learn from that mistake and go the other direction.
I don't know. I mean, like the whole battling against AI, you know, and robots rebelling and humans fighting against robots. I think if I read the book from down the block, like I was down the block and the book was way far away, that might be the perception, because they do talk about how there are rumors that research stations were taken over by these flesh and mechanical beings, and that they've been burned to the ground so that they couldn't spread, or that nobody would find them, and other things like that. But it's like, those are all rumors. They're all conspiracies. They're all, it's like an undercurrent, but it's not explicitly stated that this is what is happening.
Well, they may have changed that.
They may have leaned heavily into, you know, this is actually the case. So I don't know.
Yeah. So that's the Electric State. We're excited. I'd be happy to play it. I mean, give it a one shot or what have you. I think it's an interesting setting, but again, like, I think we just all have to be in the right headspace to play it, because it's kind of a very depressing place to visit.
It is.
So moving into Lair of Secrets news, we have shorts, not the kind you wear, the kind you watch.
We have both. We
do have both, but we're going into winter, so you know it's right. In any case, we've been experimenting with shorts on YouTube to kind of see what happens, and so far they've been working out pretty well. We're up to 102 subscribers on YouTube, so thank you everybody who subscribed. So we're gonna keep doing that and see. I've got some other ideas of stuff I'd like to play around with shorts. I thought, and I haven't bounced this one off of you yet, but I thought of doing a series of like our favorite dice shorts, where you just like talk about a particular die and see what happens, because you know how I love funky dice.
Yes. Yeah.
So
it is also possible that it's hard to contain him, but alternate universe David might actually also come back
if he escapes.
We'll see how that goes.
That could be.
Don't listen to him.
I thought alternative universe David offering advice on how to run Cyberpunk would be hilarious, but it just might be how we originally played Cyberpunk in the 90s.
Right.
And it will just feel like an alternative universe
where it's all cool and sweet and everything's, you know, God complex.
There's also the advice, like, so was it the Shut Up You Ignorant Screwballs? The book is great, but it was written in the 90s, and it's got the original designers and what have you talking advice, and it's like, players giving you crap, kill them. Right? It might not be the kinder, gentler advice we might give today, although having heard some of the horror stories that people have had with their Cyberpunk players today, I can understand why you would just go, yeah, you know what, they're coming for you.
You're
not going to get away with it.
Yeah, we'll see if he comes back and see I don't know, maybe if he does get out, maybe we can feed him some topics.
That would be fantastic, because he's been away for a while, but he emerges in the winter. I think that's where he came out last time, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that I can do alternative universe Ken, because then I'd have to shave the goatee. So anyway, as we move on to more goofiness, brutal goofiness, we've both been watching KAOS on Netflix, which actually kind of touches on Hades. So Hades is a game about escaping from hell. You are the main character is continually trying to get past his father and escape to the surface world. It has a fantastic story. It's an awesome game. The gameplay is great, but I love how the story unfolds like a couple of sentences at a time. I understand there's like 300,000 words that were written for this game, and it shows. So and I finished the game. I actually got to the end, and like there's a cutscene. There's like the final cutscene and the credits roll, and I'm still playing it because apparently there's more story.
There's more story. Like that's like the first ending, and then you can keep going, and there's of course all of the achievements that you can get, but all of those achievements kind of have like a story piece to them.
Yes.
Yes. And yeah, it is an amazing game. One of the things that I liked about it was an individual run through the game, because it's a roguelite, was usually very quick. Mm-hmm. And about the time I was starting to get really frustrated with it, I got past a hurdle, and then I would be able to, easily progress through the first part, and then I'd have to go to the next hurdle.
Yes.
It's as close to a Dark Souls game as I'm ever going to get again. Hades was really good. I really loved it. Dark Souls, not so much, but it's I know controversy, but
meanwhile,
but KAOS has been cool.
Yes.
Yeah. I've been enjoying.
So what is it? We should explain what it is.
Yeah. So KAOS is a lot of the Greek mythology, but set in modern day. And the Greek gods actually do exist. And Jeff Goldblum plays Zeus, which is just
everything you'd want.
Perfect in terms of casting the way they're doing this. A lot of horrific stuff. Like, it doesn't look horrific, but when you start thinking about it, it is horrific. Like the disciples, priestesses of Hera have their tongue removed, shall we say. But then Hera has an entire wall of little drawers that have all of those tongues in it that speak to her when they open the drawer. And because people go to Hera's priestesses to confess. And all of those confessions get relayed to Hera. So Hera is like the gossip monger spider in the web who knows everybody's dirty secrets. And so there's that. There's Zeus is completely paranoid because he's got a prophecy that basically he thinks is going to lead to his downfall and or death. The one piece that is not quite the same as the Greek myths is, and they've hinted at it a little bit. I'm only actually 3 episodes in. So they've hinted at it that Zeus, or this Zeus maybe, but Zeus started as a mortal, and because prophecies only affect mortals. And so as a deity, this shouldn't be concerning because prophecies don't affect deities, but being immortal, it might. Or previously being immortal, it might.
Yeah, so it's cool. There are, being further along than you are, there's some scenes, there are some episodes that are lighthearted and funny, and you're laughing, and then you go on to the next one because you're one more before we go to bed, and it's oh crap, that was awful. But it's counterbalanced. Everybody is just playing it to the hilt, and it's a good series. I'm enjoying it, and I'm enjoying I always loved Greek mythology as a kid, so it's cool to kind of remember these things. And having just played through Hades, it's interesting also to see how the same characters are represented in different ways. So I thought it's a fun series. Again, you kind of have to be in the right headspace for it. It has a lot of mature and dark topics, so read the disclaimers before you get into it. But
it's not a kid's
fun.
show.
It's not a kid's show. It's not a kid's show, but it is Jeff Goldblum as Zeus, and so
yeah. Yeah, oh, it is good. And there are other actors in it that I can't remember their names right now, but I have seen before, and they are all good in it as well. And there's people that I haven't seen before who are also good in it. I'm trying to remember Zeus's son. What deity is that?
Dionysus.
Dionysus. Yeah, he is awesome. Like I really like the way that that character has been played so far.
And there's like little things like you haven't gotten to it yet, but in Hell or in Hades, I guess, or whatever, like they have the Cerberus dogs, but they're really cute.
Yes.
Like they're very, very cute puppies.
I've gotten to that.
Like they should be creepy, but they're just so damn cute.
Well, I mean, the Cerberus, they have multiples of them, and they're about the size of like a Labrador Retriever, and they act like it. Right. And at one point you see one of the people who is a guard that has it. Evidently they give these dogs as puppies to these guards for them to raise. And you see like little puppy Cerberus, and it is so cute.
It's very, very cute.
Yeah. Yeah.
So moving on to other games we're playing. So I've been playing, now that I've played Hades, which everybody had already played, I am also now playing Baldur's Gate, which everyone has already played. I'm enjoying it. I haven't done a real turn-based thing in a long time. I mean, you can do real time, but then eventually you just need to go into casting all the spells and stuff. So it does actually bring back all of the feels about Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. Like, it's not the exact same style, obviously, and it's much better graphically, but pretty cool. I haven't got to play it that much because I keep playing Hades.
Yeah. I played a little bit of Baldur's Gate 3 times. I've started the game 3 times. If there was a way to skip past the prologue where you're on the Nautilus ship, I would do that and start the game again. But maybe I'll just speed run that part or something. But like, it's a really long tutorial.
It is a very long tutorial.
And the reason I know this is because like I started a game, and then some friends of mine said, "Hey, do you want to play this game?" And they had already been playing in Baldur's Gate 3. And when I joined, it forced us all to start a brand new game.
Oh my
like
God.
I could not join a game of theirs that was in progress. Maybe it was user error, but I don't know. And so we did not get very far. And so I basically have not made it to, evidently there's a town. I haven't made it there.
I haven't made it there yet. I got into a dungeon and I had a hilarious battle with a door because I couldn't get past the door because it was trapped, and there were other adventurers on the other side of the door who couldn't get past it because it took too much. It had damage reduction, and so hilariously we were basically just setting up for the fight on either side of the door, and then finally I opened the door, and it was just like the epic battle of the door. I couldn't believe how intense it was, but it was fun. The other game I'm playing,
seeing the episode from the movie Clue. Let us in, let us in, let us out, let us out.
Yes, exactly. So the other thing I'm playing, we joke about Starforged because we have a co-op game going eventually. But I've been trying it out solo. I've been building out like a campaign for it, and I'm trying to use Obsidian to organize all my notes. Obsidian's like a wiki, like local wiki sort of thing, and I'm liking it. It's a good way of like just keeping track of all your notes. I already use it to keep track of my other campaigns, so it's not a huge surprise. But I think for a solo game where you're journaling and you want to keep track of the things that you're exploring, it makes sense. So I think at some point I want to do a video for the channel and the podcast about using Obsidian to run your campaign or to run a solo game. But it's pretty nifty.
Yeah.
And I'm really enjoying Starforged. I wish I just had more time to actually play it.
Yeah, we definitely should do something about Obsidian, because that's what I used for so far all of the Fallout campaign and a lot of the other campaign stuff. I think I may have been the one that turned you on to Obsidian at one point.
You did. And then I experimented with a bunch of stuff that was open source, and then I came back to it because all the open source stuff was just too hard to use.
Right. Yeah, there is a certain polish on Obsidian that I haven't found anywhere else, even though I don't. It's all written in Markdown, so it doesn't feel right to pay for it. But then again, it's so polished that maybe I should. And from what I understand, it's a very small, like 2 or 3 person company. So maybe I should like throw them some money so that they keep supporting it.
So you're playing games too. You referred to it at the beginning of the podcast. So
I am.
Mechwarrior?
I am Mechwarrior 5. It came out a long time ago, but the newest. I hesitate to call it DLC, but like the newest expansion to it is Solaris 7, sort of gladiatorial mech combat. Which, of course, I didn't get that one. I just got the regular Mechwarrior 5, and I'll get up to Solaris 7 at some point, maybe. I'm a huge BattleTech fan from way back in, 1985, which is shortly after BattleTech came out. I was my first Gen Con, and in the Great Hall, they had demos of playing BattleTech with cardboard standees. That was BattleTech back then, and it was a lot of fun. I got my head kicked off in the demo by my friend, and it was great, and I've been a fan since. And I haven't played a lot of it lately because it generally does take a long time to not necessarily set up, but to play. And I don't really have anybody around here that is a BattleTech fan. We've got a couple of friends who are BattleTech fans, but like they're 14, 16-hour drive apart.
I was going to say, we're not in the right states.
Yes. And so I've played some of the other Mechwarriors. I think the last Mechwarrior I played was Mechwarrior 3. This one feels a lot more like you're running an actual battle mech. And it's been a lot of fun. It's set in before the Fourth Succession War, and then you get into the Fourth Succession War. So basically it's the original BattleTech setting. Eventually, I imagine the clan will show up, or the clans, the multiple clans, right, like Jade Falcon and such. But that hasn't happened yet. So right now it's the big Steiner Davion merger is coming. And, I'm playing a mercenary unit and traveling around all over the inner sphere, and it's just been a lot of fun. And the dopamine hits from going in and playing a short mission, and then having them, being successful most of the time, and then having to go, oh yeah, okay, I got like 9 million credits. What do you mean I got 10 million credits of damage? Crap. And then it's like trying to run on that treadmill, and the treadmill may be sometimes going a little slower and you gain a little, and you sometimes going a little faster and you lose a little. I've been slowly building up the number of mechs I have, the tonnage, etc. And it's a lot of fun to play. There's some tactics in there of like how to have a close in battle, how to disable other mechs quickly. It's been a lot of fun. Multiple hours of my life have been sucked up by it, which means I probably need to put it aside for a little while and get other things done, like the gaming coffee table and maybe a turn of Starforged with you and Chris.
Maybe. Although
maybe
now,
writing more in my book.
Because you do this to me all the time, I went out and looked, and it's actually available for PS5 because I'm not a PC gamer, right? But it is available for a mere $30 for PS.
Yep. Well, if you get it, I will play multiplayer with you. The way that it works is evidently one of us can play the campaign, or there's like campaign mode, and then there's one other mode, which is basically like divorced from story, I think. And then but it's like you're choosing where your mercenary band goes, etc. But whoever hosts the game, up to 3 other people can come in and use the other 3 mechs in that lance, and so you're all doing the same battle, but you're all part of the same mercenary unit, and you're the 4 people in that lance, which seems like fun.
The long dark winter is coming, and I have 2 kids in college, so
yep.
maybe.
Yep. Actually, my youngest was just said, "Hey, my college offers winter classes." I'm like, "What? Winter classes?" Evidently, they're doing asynchronous online classes for like 3 weeks. There's a very limited number of those classes, but like if she takes those, it's like that. Well, that's some of her time that she's not going to be available, and she might stay at her apartment. yeah, like I don't know if they're coming home for winter break or not. And if not, then Aaron and I are going to have to find stuff to do. Mechwarrior 5 is not her cup of tea, but can't have to do multiple different things. Mechwarrior 5 might be one of them.
There you go. So, everyone, we're glad that you could join us on the Lair of Secrets today. Remember, if you activated the cloaking device, please deactivate it before you leave. It's a pain to find when people leave it on. Clean out after yourselves, people.
Oh my gosh. Like, tripping over that thing is really annoying.
Yes. Yes. And then, you want to find it,
deactivate it before you leave.
Yes. And so, we've been experimenting. We're running all kinds of experiments in the Lair. One of our other experiments, aside from shorts, again, the online kind, not the ones you wear, is we've been playing around on Instagram. So you can follow us over there. We're at Lair of Secrets. There'll be a link in the show notes and what have you. So thanks again for listening. We really appreciate it.